Okay, this is my dad's 1930 Ford Model A pickup. Okay, this is my dad's 1930 Ford Model A pickup. And why don't you tell them how you found this and where you found it?
Okay, this was, as I remember right, also on the internet, and it was a 1930 pickup truck, and I had some interest in it, so I made some phone calls. Just a little quick background on it. The guy that I bought it from, he took it as security on a loan he made to his uncle, who subsequently died without paying him back, and so he was going to sell this to recoup his money. That was his only interest. I came up there and looked at it. Now, this is a situation that you may run into. I looked at it and he said, "Oh, we have a little problem." He said, "What's that?" He said, "It won't start." And he said, "But I know it's the coil." I didn't have a multimeter, I couldn't check anything like that and so forth. So I checked everything else on it, turned it over and so forth, and
Made sure that it wasn't locked up. So
it
you
wasn't locked up, it would crank okay. And so we settled on dropping the price $1,000 to cover whatever problem I had, which might or might not cover the problem. You know, if it was, the engine was totally shot or whatever, you know what prices are today. I took a chance, bought the truck, brought it home, and found that getting a coil was easy. Any parts place will have the 6-volt coil, because tractors, a lot of the older tractors, I should say, take a 6-volt coil like this, and
well, some of the auto parts stores, like a Napa, handles tractor parts.
this was CarQuest. It was, you know.
So, and it's out in the country where they have Ford 8 ends and 9 ends, and
That's true. You probably
have
couldn't.
6 volts.
They probably wouldn't be able to find one in Brooklyn. Okay.
Yeah.
I give up on that one. So anyway, we brought it home, got it here. We had to tow bar it, not tow bar it. We trailered it here. Which, by the way, if you're looking at that and the cost, you know that it's 1 day out. It's about $75 from U-Haul, and their trailers make it real easy.
Yeah, the new ones are actually aluminum. Years ago, they were steel and super heavy.
Get the
These,
aluminum.
behind his truck, you couldn't hardly even feel it.
Yeah.
And then even with this on it, it was pretty easy tow.
And I have a relatively small pickup. It's a Ranger, but then Rangers are tough. I know. Okay, we'll talk about that later. So let's talk a little bit about this. I you know, got
You put the coil on.
put a coil on it, check the wiring, and of course I had the coil on backwards. And people do that quite often because, you know, they figure that the wire's going through the coil. What difference does it make if it goes through this way or it goes through this way? Well, it does make a difference. So watch out for that. Follow the wiring diagram and keep a multimeter with you. It works best when 2 people are doing it. And we'll look at another Model A in a moment where we did with 2 people. I did this by myself. It's much easier with 2 people. One doing the work and one checking the work and so forth. Anyways, we went through the darn thing. I've cleaned it up some and got it a little closer to original. I put a 2
Wait. Coil on and it started. This you had this running and on the road.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh.
it runs. You know, the engine itself is good. Had a little issue with the distributor because I remember you took me for a ride. Well, it was a half mile down the road or a mile down the road. It stops and we figured out the timing's wrong again, and it kept losing time on it.
You know how easy it is to time that. We timed it on the side of the road and said, okay,
Got it started again.
got it started, got it back here. The next time I went out, it seemed like it was designed to go half a mile to a mile, just too far to walk back. Anyways, it took a while to find a problem, but there is a little flat washer that is part of the drive for the rotor. You look at an exploded view. By the way, exploded view is the best way to start working on something. Look at your exploded view in a supply catalog. Excuse me. We found this little flat washer that was missing, and it was losing its time that way. As soon as I put we got another distributor, and it had a little flat washer in it. We put it in there, timed it, and it ran good after that.
But one of the issues was the distributor itself, the housing was broken, and it was seized into the cylinder head. So he had to take the whole cylinder head off to get the seized distributor. I don't know if somebody put something in there that seized it up, but the distributor housing itself was actually broken. So he had to, I found one on eBay, and he rebuilt that one and put it back on. So several issues with the distributor on this that guy probably didn't even know about. But the little washer was one, and the broken housing seized in the cylinder head, and he had to take the whole cylinder head off and put it back on. But after all that, he got it running and it was drivable. Right now, he's been working on some body work on this. And tell him about you're having some kind of carburetor issue on this one now.
It's got a Tillotson. I used the Tillotson, my 29 had Tillotson on it. Never gave me any trouble at all, and I put 33,000 miles on that car. This Tillotson here was leaking, so I took it apart, found a leak. The float had a hole in it and was half full of gas. I said, I got it fixed. Found another Tillotson, put a different float in there and tried
Well, bought a carb kit that's supposed to include a float, and it didn't. So we had to go back to the vendor and get a float for it, which
cost an extra $40.
So careful with your
Watch
floats.
out for the float. Make sure that yours is good if you get a kit. Well, make long story short, we put it on, and the problem I have now is it either will not get gas or will get too much gas. And I found that there are ways of setting the float, including there's a neon washer, I'll call it, that goes into place above the needle valve. And that is designed to be put in there and stay there, and that will bring it down to where the float closes quicker, which would prevent leaks.
Which is the official way of adjusting the float, instead of taking a pair of needle nose and bending.
I tried that too.
Which is probably what happened to the old float. That sink is probably somebody twisted it and it got a hole in it, because they're very, very brittle.
It could be. Now, some people will solder a leak. It was such a small leak and it was so critical to the operation, I said, no, I'll just get a new one and be done with it. So we've got it in there, and now the problem is it either leaks gas or if it doesn't leak gas, it doesn't start.
So we're still troubleshooting on this one.
Yeah, now I got an expert from Ted's Garage to look at it, and he come up with a very highly technical solution that we need to check out. He told me that what we'll do is I'll push on the starter pedal and he'll squirt a little bit of ether in it. If it fires,
then we got spark.
then we know we got spark. Right now, I've had a problem with this. There was an intermediate spark, and that spark can be very elusive. In another Model A recently, we found the problem was where the wire screws into the distributor was not screwed in, or it screwed in too far, I believe.
Yeah, the ignition cable, that's where it screws in.
which shorted out the ignition. If it was too far out, of course, it wouldn't make contact, so watch out for that and check your points. On this, I've checked the points, and I have spark.
Did you check the timing and check the, yeah?
Check the timing. I've even pulled the plug out and watched it arc. So
Still troubleshooting this one.
yeah, we haven't really gotten to the
Well,
bottom.
and this showed some of the body work. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but this had, 1/4 inch Bondo where somebody got after it with a hammer. It was very cracked, and you could see down in the cracks there was rust in the bottom of the cracks. So we got a angle grinder on it with some flap wheels and took it down. This had 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch layer of Bondo on it. And the Bondo, the fender flexing, the Bondo cracking, it had some deep cracks on it. And this is taken down to the metal, and then he's primered back over it, and then he's starting to sand it back over again. But both these front fenders this was the worst one. And that one has it also on it, but it was just very deep. And actually right here where the headlight bar mounts, you could see how deep the Bondo still is, where he needs to take it on down. And even the crack between the, what do you call these, splash aprons? The running board splash aprons?
Yeah.
On 30s, they had a little separate little apron here, and they Bondoed that joint. And it just looks horrible because now it's all cracked because it flexes. And they just Bondoed over that crack because they didn't want to see the crack, I guess. But then they painted it and probably looked nice for the first few years. But then he had to take the headlight bar off, and digging into the headlights, he found wire nuts from housing wire nuts on it. And so that's kind of the stage it's gotten to here. He's troubleshooting the engine, but also working on the body on this one. Probably just looking at trying to spray the front fenders right now and getting them. We'll probably need to do the back ones too, but.
The comment that you're probably not familiar with, but us old gas passers are, they had a tool in the 50s that they used to take a dent out of a fender. It was a pneumatic tool that pounded. Mm-hmm. And if it was used right, it did a remarkably good job. If it wasn't used right, like this, you end up with a fender that looks like it had smallpox. And as you know, when you're using Bondo isn't a cure-all for everything. And what we're doing here is we're flattening it down and put a minimal amount of Bondo that'll cover the thing and do the job. I would suggest that before you start on this, you'd seriously consider buying another fender. This is a real pain in the neck. Mm-hmm. It's quite a job, and you can't see it, but there is dust everywhere here.
Yep.
When you use your shop as a body shop, you'll get dust everywhere, and you can see a bit of it on the cowl or whatnot.
But showing, we're showing on the 28 the headlights. Show them the difference on the 30, 31, the two lights.
Okay. First of all, here's what we ran into on this one, and this is not unusual at all. Wire nuts to hold it together. The wires were
clipped,
twisted, and taped. That wasn't unusual either.
This one's actually started to be replaced.
That was unusual. One side is rather well done as far as we've gone. And this side looks like what you might usually expect to find.
But this socket is new and these wires are new, but they just stopped with the connector. And then
there's something in there. Anyways, this is the right reflector. As you can see, the parking light goes up here in the top, and it's got the newer fluid type lens. I think that's right. Okay, And I'll have to,
There's the bulb in there. That's what's rolling around.
okay.
And we could just take this out. There's your bulbs.
Aha. Oh.
But you
Well,
can see,
let's put them in and then they won't rattle.
well, there's no connector socket.
Oh, that's why.
That's why they're rolling around.
Okay, we'll go into that in a minute.
But I wanted to show that on some of them, there's two different connector sockets. And on the 28 and the 29 with the bullet headlights, they only had the one connector in the center. Where this 3031s have the two sockets on it. And this is called a reflector, lens, ring, I guess. Yeah, it's just a little spring you pull down, pull down with your two fingers, and it unhooks it. And then the back of this is the spring that he has, and that's for the adjustment spring and the adjustment screw.
For the focus.
You have the adjusters.
What they'll also send along, look at that, shame on me. That's how things get lost when you work out in your backyard with it grass. I stopped doing that and my life got a lot simpler. They provide, and these are rather small and hard to see, but it's just a neoprene separator where the three wires go through so they don't touch. Can you see that okay?
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to this plug. This plug is a shipping plug. It's a round plug with 5 holes in it. So there are...
Here's the springs. So this goes in the back of the headlight. A spring sits on it, and then this little screw goes from the outside, and that's what adjusts the beam on the headlight. So you have to have this little spring in the headlight bucket and this little screw, and don't lose them. Show them the difference in we showed on the 28 the brake light switch, but now this is the one he had on the 28, and this is what he bought to replace it with.
Okay.
And show them how it works. It's a little rod that pulls out.
Well, as I mentioned before, you notice that there's the action here, and that's on the crossbar where the 4 rods go to the 4 wheels straight back. This is on the top of the transmission. It bolts on here and here in this direction, being the front. And there's a separate rod that comes out. It may be a wire, it may be a rod, either way, with a clevis on the end.
That attaches to the brake pedal.
Right. So they're the 2 types. I've never seen one like this until...
Well, and this is a big problem with old Model A's is you pull it in the garage and the battery keeps going dead. It's because you have a bad brake light switch. And, I don't know how much this costs, $10 or $20, but...
I remember if it was any more than that.
Yeah, a lot of people that keep having their batteries go dead, you trace it out, and a lot of times it's the switch, because it'll pull out and it won't shut back off. And which I can see, it's spring loaded, and after 90 years, springs might be a little weak. We want to talk anything else on this car? Does your vacuum wiper work?
This is a truck. It has a body on the back.
Yeah, you can't see it from this angle.
I couldn't resist it.
Does the vacuum wiper work? This one has a vacuum.
It has a vacuum, so until we get it running, we don't.
The 28 and 29s both have the electrics.
The
28, the 29, the 2-door, I think that's electric.
29 does. The 28's got vacuum. I have to research that. I can tell you that it has vacuum, and it's hooked into the intake manifold.
Whether that was the original or not, you can see here.
We'll have to research that. And,
vacuum line on this one.
It makes it interesting, getting this car there are several things about it that I really appreciate, and that is that when you buy this car,
Or truck.
which one? This pickup truck or that car or any Model A, when you put it that way, that, you know, if you're reasonably astute, put it that way, and you buy something that is at or below market, you're not very likely to lose any money if you put some money into it to, you know, to improve it. It's a great hobby to get into.
And especially if you want to learn about maintaining the car yourself.
Yeah.
It's a pretty simple car to learn on.
If you learn on a Model A, you'll know enough to tell the guy what's wrong with your new car when you take it in. You know, you can at least converse with him about it and tell him the computer's screwed up, and then he'll go from there.
Okay, I guess we're finished with the truck. Do you want to switch to the Model T?
Let's talk about Model T, and then we'll go back to your.
My other one.
Yes,
Okay, let's
yes.
stop and we'll reset.
Okay.